What's going on here, everybody? Goose on the 13th with a new suit on Christmas. Merry Christmas, by the way, 2025 here. We have the RF Kampfer, as well as a token pack that gives us Mackenzie for War in the Pocket. So JP only. Still, if you're a fan of some of the guys in there, I almost kind of wish they would have given us Bernie as well, but you know how it is. But you're gonna have Chris at least. In the meantime, the RF Kampfer, out of a lot of the refined series, definitely one of the ones that's been more anticipated for a while. Interesting kit, just in general. Let's go down the line here. So we have it as a 650 raid, priority 3, compatibility for space, 3-star suit. And with our kit here, we have the Kampfer shotgun. No other alt fire. It's got a beam saber at 2800 with a cooldown time of 2.5. 150 for this, 250 per hit, and ammo of 3 shots. Cooldown time of 4 and a reload of 15. Head mounted Vulcans, about 15 shots at these for a stun. Pretty good rate of fire with an ammo of 80 and a reach of 200 meters. And then we have something that's a little interesting here. So we have the heat wire. So yeah, it has its own cable. It's 3 different prongs, as you can see here, and you can actually fire this mid-air because this suit, as we'll get into a little bit more when we see the skills, actually has flaps. So when stops, launches a white hot wire that offers long suppression when hitting a target, compatible aerial melee system skill. And seemingly, it almost feels like the pattern, at least at a distance, if not in the air compared to being on the ground, is a little bit different because there are instances, if they're packed close enough together, they can hit multiple enemies with this. Definitely don't count on that. In fact, you probably want it to be a little bit more compact so that you don't risk hitting some of your allies and things like that. But then we have this little arm-mounted missile pod here, Incendiary. 500 per tick on this thing, from what I remember, and also a power of 700. Definitely an interesting vibe check for anyone who's not rocking a lot of ballistic. Nasty little piece of work here. 300 range on this as well. Probably one of the longer reaching things outside of the incom unit. And that is definitely going to be the name of the game here. Very mid to close. Anyway, look at the skills, the pattern that you can see them envisioning you going towards. You can see a little bit more once you get to there. Sternfausto. I would say that the missile pod is something that you're using in lieu of not having the double bazookas, but you do have the Sternfaust Advance, 1800 per. Ammo of 2, range of 250, so that's 1800 times 2. Decent amount of splash on these as well. Traveling speed, a little bit slow, but you know, Sternfaust behavior. And then we have the interesting part, which is the incom unit times 4. This is a barrage sort of situation here. Power of 300, heat rate of 100%, and range of 300 meters. When we're talking about this, we have something that you can fire while moving. And when I say moving, I mean high speed movement in this case. And it is linked to a skill that this has that we'll get into in a minute. For now, let us check out the stats. So we got 21k for the health. Ballistic beam and melee resistance are 23, 25, and 22 respectively. Its range and melee strength in that case are a little bit more balanced, with range being a little bit higher at 35 as opposed to melee strength of 30. Movement speed is 135, top speed is 225, thruster gauge of 80 flat, and a turning speed of 75. For the part slots, we have 20, 16, and 12 for close, medium, and long. We actually have a decent laundry list of skills here to look at too. So the usual stuff: assault booster level 3, leg shock absorber level 3. It gets 2 rolls, so emergency system 2, flight control program 4, anti-blast stabilizer, which you would hope a raid would have, glide structure 3, melee composite system 1, high spec ambag 2, high maneuver armor. So during high speed movement, damage and stagger resulting from cumulative damage is reduced. Nullifies reactions when hit, except for toppling attacks or tackles. However, if heavy stagger or higher is nullified, stagger cumulative damage becomes more frequent. And then we have Force Injector 4, Aerial Melee System 1, Flat Booster, as we were talking about before. But keep in mind, this is Flat Booster 1 on a suit that barely has what would be considered like the decent amount to have to make like the first lap when everyone's kind of doing the NASCAR and stuff. So once you start ascending, you're gonna burn through a lot of your shit pretty quickly, which is a little bit unfortunate. It feels a little bit too taxed in that regard, even at 650, especially for a raid. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, because you get special back add-on buffer, so that's 30% on the back. Full attack. So this has full attack. When a psychic immune weapon is in use, both your mobility and the damage you deal to enemy mobile suits with non-psychic immune weapons will increase. When engaging units with offensive or defensive psychic immune weapons, these effects will not be applied. So the interesting thing here is that they really want you to do the all-ranged attack with this, kind of leading in with your incoms, probably keeping the stagger going with your rocket pod as well as your Sturmfaust. And if you're on the ground when you're doing this, you know, maybe one more stun with the shotgun before eventually just going in with your melee, you know, and taking advantage of that pursuit auxiliary, which we see here for the extra 20% when you're doing melee against somebody who's on the ground. So increase melee weapon damage against staggered, heavily staggered, or toppled enemies by 20%. So the interesting thing to keep in mind here is also the heavily staggered part, since this is level 2. So you're, even before they're on the ground, as long as you're still keeping them in the heavy stagger, which is probably going to be the easier thing to do for the initial hit, especially for a downswing, you're going to get a good chunk of damage out of that. And then you have EX Boost. So EX Boost 3, we have it for 20 seconds, which I forgot that even EX Boost 3 is generally pretty short in terms of its duration. Nullifies thruster consumption when activated. To moving at high speed, attack is boosted for a set period. Using emergency evasion or tackle will reduce the effective length. When it reaches its end, there's a longer cooldown period. The effect ends until the unit is in an overheated state. Can't be reactivated. So yeah, only once per life. You get a longer cooldown after it happens, so you're going to be a little bit more exposed after you're out of that EX boost. But considering that it only has flap 1 and force injector 4, which is at least helping you with your redirects, you know, but you're still burning through a lot of it if you want to do aerial stuff. This is going to be something that you're going to have to lean on a little bit more, or, you know, in the typical lower end stuff for EX boost, you're still using it just to get some extra rolls or maybe some, you know, means to escape. Backing out a little bit from here, let's check out the enhancement list. So +1 to NCB modifier, +1 to range strength, +1 to thrusters, and at the end here for the regular upgrades, complex expansion slots, so we get +1 to everything for 2480 for the part slots. And then for the unlockable stuff, we have +1 to the NCB modifier and +5 to range strength. So for range strength, that would mean you would actually be at a baseline of 40, which is not too bad. Keep in mind, Kampfer is generally pretty fragile, especially with you being only in the low to mid 20s at 650 when things are getting gradually more high output, and then you have a lot of melee heavy suits in particular, with this only having 22. You're gonna get buzzed by a lot of other raids right now. These guys are getting indignant, and there's one contender in particular which is a little bit odd because it felt like it fell off for a while, but now it's actually in the RT store. You can buy the the Rizal Defensor raid version for recycled tickets, and there are some people taking it out for a spin and a lot of people who do not know how to deal with it, kind of just ignoring it, and you're gonna have to butt heads with it quite a bit. So, you know, be liberal with that shotgun, get that cable out there when possible, because no one's gonna do it for you. But in the meantime, let us go into here and do our practice. I totally forgot that I wasn't set up in here when I started, but that's, you know, it is what it is. And then we will talk about this suit a little bit more. I'll be honest with you, when it comes to how this moves and stuff, I'm pretty happy with it. I still don't really like, and I don't know if it's intentional or not at this point, but sometimes when you're trying to do stuff with the incoms, it feels like you lock up, and it's like you can't move sometimes. That's been something that's been going on with psychic weapons and lock-on weapons for a little while though. But we also have the shotgun here. Good amount of damage on there. Obviously big cumulative stuff for that. This is not a... Oh, you know what? Hold on. I don't know if we can really... Yeah, so you see there, this took the brunt of it, got the stun. These guys took a little bit of it as cumulative. So that's something that I want to keep in mind going forward, and it might have been in the description. I don't know if it is, but for an example, the gym raid does have a very different kind of thing where it's just instant stun regardless of how much hits you. Obviously not a very common thing, but something to keep in mind. As you can see there, pretty good hit for that. Let's try to see like a difference in here though. So thrust, that's 3540. In fact, we're gonna, yeah, 3540, and then I'll hit him again with this and see. So 42, 49. Okay, well, let's do this then. Cool. So 55, 22. Or was that 5222? Hold on. I want to get up on this guy real quick. Hold on. So like that. 62, 66. So that's a decent jump for the auxiliary. And the fact that you can do that not just from a knockdown, since it's level 2, but from a stagger or heavy stagger. I think you can probably do it from a stagger, but it would have to be, you would only get the bonus on like maybe the neutral or side. Obviously you'd probably just go for the neutral, which, you know, so that's the thing that threw me. You got that and the typical stuff on the side, but the downswing is this thrust, and for the most part it's not a big deal until you get into some of the aerial stuff where that happens. Like it's not tilted down, you're not descending too much, and you're just kind of hoping that you land on people. Obviously you can try to if you're high enough. I don't know how high you have to be, but if you do the quick fall and do that, you have a little bit more of a chance because you're descending faster. But the other thing is that depending on elevation, you can also have a hard time hitting your target on the ground anyway. You gotta be a little bit careful of that. But as long as you're either hitting contact with the wrist or just a bigger part of the suit, you should be okay. One other thing that I want to kind of show off here, if I can. Yeah, so that spread on those extra tendrils for the cable can hit multiple enemies. Not bad. These are all instant stun for the missile pod, and as you can see they're 500 per tick. And pretty fast besides. Not too bad there. And then let me try to get on the Humbrabis to show you guys the Vulcans. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And a decent rate of fire. Not too shabby there. Now, the nice thing about the EX boost, even though I'm not really fond on gimmicks like that for suits, is that unlike over boosts, you do not trip after it happens. And I do wish that the duration was a little bit longer though. And then obviously you get situations like that. The stern foss are pretty straightforward. And that's the general gist of the weapons and kind of the general behavior. You got a lot of really good accumulation coming out of the situation here. I'm trying to turn it up a little bit more. Sorry if that was a little bit too loud. But I enjoy the kit on this. What I don't enjoy is the stuff that this suit has to contend with at 650. 650 is in a really weird place, similar to like 550, where there's a lot of things that work just well enough for people to try to use all of it. And the more definitive suits that I feel are a little bit more reliable, if not, they're not broken, but they're just the easy choice, right? When it comes to like the Agdoga sleeves or things like that. They're a little bit harder to obtain compared to some of the more common things you're going to see at this cost. Similarly, we're getting stuff like, you know, like I said before, like with the Roselle Defensor A, that's bringing that back to this cost because people who've never been able to touch the suit are now starting to mess with it. Which means that people who haven't had to deal with it for a while are now having to relearn how they dealt with it beforehand. So this isn't going to be another suit because of the unit adjustments for this month, as well as just other suits becoming available like that, where I'm going to be curious to see what the environment looks like for this suit later on in the week. But for now, we do have a match that we can check out and discuss a little after, and we're gonna put that right around here.
The battlefield is dead ahead. Sortie when ready.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Commence operation. We captured a beacon! The enemies captured a beacon!
Move up. What are you doing? We're just gonna try to chew on this dude. He wasn't gonna move right away. You should have just ignored him.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit! Our base is taking enemy fire! This damage shouldn't affect too much. Our base is in trouble! You've taken some serious damage.
Oh my god, let me fucking roll. What the hell was that?
Ally has destroyed an enemy mobile
Like, I had the boost. Let me do it.
Can't hold on! I'm picking up an SOS from an ally. An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
Oh god, I don't hit him either.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit! Your ally's been knocked out! Pick where and how you'll sortie. Your ally's been knocked out! Good luck!
They're gonna start really pushing in here soon.
Ally's been knocked out! Your ally's been knocked out! This damage shouldn't affect you much. An ally has just... Whoa! Oh no! Your mobile suit has had it!
Oh my god, they're all gonna turtle up as if they can't kill it at base at any time. Bruh.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit! The enemy's captured a... Your ally's been knocked out!
In fact, whatever that is.
Good luck! An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit! An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit! Enemy mobile suit destroyed! work. An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit. This damage shouldn't affect you much.
Oh, oh.
Your ally's been knocked out. An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile
Oh,
suit.
ow. Yeah, the rest kind of sucks.
Enemy mobile suit destroyed.
Did he just punch him over?
Your ally's been knocked out.
Oh, I know you fight.
2 minutes left in the mission. An ally base is just enemy mobile suit destroyed. We captured a beacon. You've taken some. Whoa, your mobile suit isn't looking good.
No! God damn it, Zeta. Oh! We got the RF Kampfer out today. Finally. A camphor for the refined taste. No. Oh, I mean, if you're on PC, then you have to wait like 3 hours. I'm on console. We don't do that here.
Your ally's been knocked out. Enemy mobile suit destroyed. 1 minute remaining. Stay sharp.
Oh, the income shit, oh god.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit. An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
There's my baby. Is that you?
Incredible. Yeah.
Oh god. I don't wanna let. I need all that on me.
Your ally's time has run out.
I just sell it. Oof.
Success! That was awesome! You
I
wrecked
have a
him!
TV anymore. Wait. Are you playing on like a laptop or something? I was gonna say, because you can always find a way to hook it to your monitor, but yeah. I think there's ways to reverse the signal for that, but yeah, that's unfortunate. Or at least to do like a capture through it. I don't know how I feel about this thing right now.
Here are this battle's rewards!
Especially in an environment where people are starting to bring back the Rizal raid, and I'm like, So that was our run in the RF Kampfer. I feel like I got the hang of it at least a little bit more towards the end. But in general, it really feels like the pacing of this suit is a little slow with what, you know, other suits are doing at this cost. Again, much like I was saying before, because of the amount of suits that are at this cost, there are some that you're going to have a harder time dealing with than others, and it's going to be really difficult to like gauge where this sits as a whole until some of the curiosity about those suits from the redo or from the adjustments kind of dies down, and we see what, you know, settles into place for 650. Still, I think a lot of people who don't have some of the more, you know, monkey heavy kind of melee suits at this cost are going to be right at home with this, just because you know, the boosted auxiliary means that you're punishing people before they're even on the ground, as long as you're getting that stun or heavy stagger. And in general, even though the payoff for the melee isn't super great, you have so much other stuff to hold people down with this before you even get to that they're pretty much just going to be wiped by the time you even make contact otherwise. So in that regard, it is a pretty satisfying suit. No heavy and a couple other things means that it's not going to be as full tilt as other raids can be. But if you are one of those people that's been a Kampfer main for a long while, having some incoms and different stuff strapped to it isn't going to make much of a difference to you one way or the other. And having this heavy cable, although it is a little bit risky considering the kind of stuff that's going to be coming at you in this, you know, cost, it is also a way to stop certain suits from their, you know, full tilt bullshit if they don't see it coming in time to really redirect or stop themselves. So in that regard, putting that in tandem with the flaps, especially if you're willing to burn your EX boost on getting some aerial business done, I can see people sticking with this for a little bit. Do I think it's going to survive beyond like a month necessarily compared to other raid options at this cost? Right now, I don't feel super confident in that. Will that change later on down the line as people's habits or choices change? Maybe. Especially, you know, depending on what other stuff gets put out. We're in a situation right now where, man, I can't even remember. What was our last support? Because right now we're very thin on options. And I feel like whatever gets put out at this point at the higher end of cost is just going to get mauled by all of the very aggressive raids and generals that have been put here. But, you know, that's a topic for another day when we finally get another support. Right now, it's the week of the Kampfer. You know, our good old Christmas suit here. War in the Pocket being honored in a different way here on top of the token pack with the Chris boys. So, you know, once again, Merry Christmas. This is my general thoughts on the RF Kampfer for now. And of course, we got this on my Ginny account. So we will be playing this throughout the week when we do her dailies. So look forward to that. Hopefully I can get this down a little bit more pat, and we'll see how that looks as we go in further into the week. But otherwise, I hope you guys have a good rest of your morning, night, or whatever. And I'll talk to you all in the next video.